Okay, let's take a look at this form, which has these buttons that are supposed to implement a tic-tac-toe game. And let's use this form in order to write a program where we can actually play tic-tac-toe. Well, if we can write the code that works for one of these 9 buttons, then we could probably copy it and paste it for all the others. And in fact, that's exactly what we'll do. Also, the way that we will implement this game is to use some of the very simple techniques that we have learned so far in this course. There are much more sophisticated ways that we could do it, but this is introductory, so we will just go with what we know. All right, well, if we have this form, then let's get to the code by double-clicking, and let's go with this top button here. So if we double-click, we get the click event to go with the button number 1. What I want to do is to allow the input of either an X or an O. And to do that, I'm going to declare a variable called a move, and it's going to be either X or O. So let's make it a type string. It's not a number, so we'll start with that. And I want to have an input box. We have seen how to use an input box. So let's use that to type in our move of X or O. So the move will be equal to an input box, and we will prompt our user to type either an X or an O. So enter an X or an O. Now, the other thing I want to put on the end of this is a little extra thing that will make sure that the user, that we have an uppercase letter whether or not the user types in a lowercase x or an uppercase. So to do that, we can add a little thing at the end called toUpper. So regardless of what is entered from the keyboard, this will make it a capital or an uppercase letter. Then that way we don't have to test for lowercase and uppercase. To begin with, let's set our button, say button 1 dot text will be equal to the move. So this will put either the X or the O on the button. We also want to turn the button either red if it's an X, or we want to turn it green if it's an O. So let's test for that. We can do if move is equal to, we need the double quotes here, X. So if it's an X, then we want to set the color to be red. So that'd be button 1 dot back color is equal to color dot red. Otherwise, and we can use an else here. So otherwise, then it's either going to be an X or an O. So we could have used an else if move is equal to O if we wanted to, but if it's going to be an X, we'll have tested this one here, and otherwise it has to be an O. So we don't really have to do the else if. We can just set button 1 dot back color equal to green. So button 1 back color equals color dot green. There we go. So we will enter an X or an O. We will put that onto the button, and then we'll test to see if we need to make the back color either red or green. The other thing we need to do is we do have a quit button on the form. We don't have the click event to go with that, so let's double click here, and let's just put our usual end here to terminate the program. There, we don't have a lot of code. Let's see what we get now if we run the program. And we can only test the first button, but that's okay. So we'll run the program, and the form will pop up here momentarily. All right, so the button 1 is this one up here in the upper left. So when I click it, then you'll see here is the input box. So it says enter an X or an O. So let's do that. Let's type in the letter X, and it is lowercase the way I've typed it. But when I hit enter, then this toUpper makes it uppercase, and since it's an X, then the back color is going to be red. Well, that's fine. That works the way we want it to. And without quitting, I'll go ahead. I'll quit. Let's quit. Then we'll start it up again. Let's test for the letter O. So if I click this button, and I type in O, enter, or click OK, then the letter O goes here. So we have our X move and we have the O move. So those work just fine. Let's quit, but let's try something else. If I run this again, what if I type in the letter J? Well, if I click this, and if I type in the letter J, and I say OK, then that works too. Well, we don't want that. Let's try to make sure that our users, the players of this game, can only type in an X or an O. So let's add that to the code. Now, before we get into this part, as soon as we enter a move, let's make sure that that move is correct. So what I want to do then is, if the move is correct, we will do this part, and if it isn't, then we will tell the user that they have to enter an X or an O. So we need another if statement here. Okay, so let's type it this way. If move is equal to double quote X, and it has to be uppercase, or move is equal to double quote uppercase O, then that's a legitimate entry. That's a good choice. Then, if that's true, we will do all of this part of the program. So let's type else right here. Okay, so if the move is an X or if the move is O, then it's a good move and we'll do that. Okay, if it isn't, then we need to let them know that that's not a legitimate move. So let's use a message box for that. Message box.show. And let's do it. It's double quote and just give them the message. You must enter an X or an O. All right, so let me make that uppercase X here. So it doesn't matter if I can enter lowercase or uppercase, but I want the message to be uppercase. And then we'll do the end if. Now this means that if the user types in anything other than X or O, they will get this message box. If they type in an X or an O, that's a good move, and we'll do this part of the program. Let's try this. Okay, so we'll run the program, and we'll bring our form over, and let me click the box. I'll type in something now that is not correct. So we'll type in K, for example. Then you see we get the message box from the bottom. It says you must enter an X or an O. Well, okay, sorry, I guess I mistyped it. So then I try again, and I type in an O, and now it works just fine. But this means now that I've limited what the user can type in. They have to type in an X or an O if they want to play the game. So this works for one button, but we have another 8 buttons to complete the game. So I'll show you what we can do. Now that we've done the code, it's pretty simple. We could copy and paste, but we do have to have click events for all of these other buttons. So let's move along. Let's double click this one. And I have to stop the program. It's still running. So quit. Double click this button. This is button 2, the click event to go with that. All we need to do is we need to go copy what we just did for button 1. So if we select all the code here, we can copy it and we can paste it into the click event for button 2. Then the only thing we need to change is the reference to button 1. So you see we have that in 3 places. So we just change that to button 2 here, and then finally button 2 down there. There we go. So now this code works for button number 2. Let's prove it to you. Let's test it to make sure. Okay, so now I can click button 1. That still works. Let me put an X there. And if I click button 2, then I'm getting a lot of problems over here. What's going on? Well, once again, I have failed to stop the program. Click quit. Okay, now that it works. So here we have button number 2. So we can enter an X and O. So let's now test the program again. So let's run it. And the form will appear. Let's click button number 1. We can type in an X and click OK. So now that works. We now have the code for button 2. So if I click it, Then we also get the input box. Let's type in O, click OK, and now that works. So if we continue to just copy and paste the code for these remaining buttons, then we'll have a complete tic-tac-toe game. So let's do that. Now, let's do one more, and then I'll just finish up the program and show you the final result. So let's go back to the form, design view, double click this button. Then we can paste, make sure it's not running. Okay, it's not running. So I'll paste in the code from the previous case, and then we'll change again button 1. Now we should make that button 3. And I'll just copy and paste this. And you can do that. Okay, I'm double clicking, I'm pasting. So now I've changed the code so that button 3 works. Let's run the program. Here it is. I click button 3. Button 3 now works, and so on. Alrighty, so I'm going to pause the video and I'll paste the code in for the remaining buttons, and then we'll come back and run it again. Okay, I have done that, so let me show you what we have for the remaining buttons. So for all the click events, here's button 4. It's exactly the same code. Now I just changed the button that was button 3 to button 4. If we scroll down, we'd see the same thing. You know, button 5 here, button 5 here, and so on. So we did this for the remaining buttons, the click event for all those 9 buttons now. We make sure we have the name of the button in the right place. So we had to copy and paste. Here's button 7, then here's button 8, and then finally here's button 9. So now we have a complete program. So we can run and we can play tic-tac-toe. Okay, so if we're starting up here, then X can make a move, and we click OK. Then the next person can pick whatever location they want, and O's turn to play, so we type in an O. Then, X wants to make the move, then X can go over here, let's say, and so on. So now we have a tic-tac-toe game that works. Okay, so X goes up there. Alrighty, O can block only one of those, and X wins by clicking here. So there you go. We could make this a very sophisticated game where we could put in if statements to test to see if we had 3 of any kind in a row. So it wouldn't be hard to do. It would take a lot of time because there's so many different ways that you could get 3 in a row. We need a lot of if statements. But this completes then all we need to do for this game. So there you go. That's the solution, simple one for the tic-tac-toe game.